Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Newsrounds by Anfield Index. It is Tuesday, the 19th of August. People, we are inside the last few weeks of the transfer window. It's been brilliant so far. Reds have done some really good business. Everyone's happy with the players that we've got in so far. But if it was to shut now, you'd have real concerns about this squad. And I think we all know the positions. I think we all know the players we're going to give updates on as well. Plenty to get stuck into. I'm your host, Dave Davis, coming to you from, well, it's quite gloomy, but it's cool at Edinburgh. So I will take that right now. We'll see how the day is and whether it livens up. Fingers crossed, it is nice wherever you are. So let's get into it then. What is going on? Everything Liverpool related. Well, the first thing we should do is, just I brought it up there, the Premier League table. Everyone has now played a game. Leeds beat Everton 1-0 last night, which was kind of funny a little bit, but wasn't at the same time. And the Reds are one of the 7 sides that have 3 points from the opening day. Now, my biggest takeaway from the weekend is, look at our game. The Senesi handball that was not given. That if anyone saw the Leeds game last night, it was kind of funny that it was against them, but that is never a handball in a million years for me from Tarkowski. Another bad ref decision. And they say bad luck comes in threes. Well, Arsenal, United. I mean, there's that one where Saliba goes through the back of Kuna. Should have really been a penalty. To me, it's 3 decisions already where VAR either steps in or doesn't, and either way carves it up wrongly. Maybe we just getting used to this standard again. You know, there's no need to be apoplectic or anything like that. Unfortunately for us, more than anything, it finishes 4-2. So this, in the grand scheme of things, we weren't robbed of a great spectre, but the refereeing so far in the Premier League, leave it with you. Let's get on to all things Liverpool. And some business was done yesterday. Now, they should have really updated this because it says Ben Doak completes permanent transfer to AFC Bournemouth. It is Ben Doak, as he now wishes to be known, to acknowledge both parents. Yeah, 90, as it says here on the official site, the 19-year-old forward finalised the move to the Premier League club, Brentford, after 3 years with the Reds. Doak arrived at Anfield from Celtic in the summer of 2022 for doesn't say this on the website, but for 600 grand, and made a total of 10 senior appearances for Liverpool, with his debut coming 2 days before his 17th birthday in November 22. I bet you any money, and this isn't a test, and there's no real money at stake, but that no one could remember all 10 of Ben Doak's senior first-team appearances. Bet you couldn't. Genuinely. And I don't know whether it says that, whether, because he's involved in pre-season at different times, whether they're counting that at all. But for a lad that has apparently made a total of 10 senior appearances, that's not being derogatory at all, but to get 25 million, as is suggested in all the reports, 25 million. And, importantly, Edwards, Hughes, whoever it is, have worked their magic again. A buyback clause with suggestions the buyback clause is around the 50 million mark. So I don't think he will personally. I don't think this will ever be activated whatsoever. However, there is people that do think he's going to bang, as it were, at Bournemouth, and, we'll have to keep an eye on him. If that is the case, similar to what they did with Jarell Quansah this summer, they have absolutely covered themselves there. So Ben Doak departs. He will not be the only one before the window closes. It is important to say that the expectation will get developments on Kostas Tsimikas this week, won't we? I mean, Paul Joyce saying permanent exit only. Romano was saying the other day that a loan will be countenanced as well. No one's really sure about that. So we'll have to see what develops. But full expectation, Kostas Tsimikas does leave the club this week. Harvey Elliott as well. Into the last 2 weeks for him. Didn't get a single minute against Crystal Palace. That is the other high profile departure or potential departure I think we all are really expecting, be it most likely Red Bull Leipzig, but potential for Spurs if the Eze move doesn't happen. And with Savinho now falling through from City, one just to keep an eye on. So those are the most high-profile departures. We will see what happens there. I get it, though. It's probably more the incomings that we're focusing on. And there's two players to really talk about because they are the recurring themes, aren't they? It's Marc Guehi and Alexander Isak. And if we're all completely honest, with 13 days to go, if we don't land both, it's probably reducing the score you would give the window. I mean, right now, as it stands, I think you're probably fair to give it an 8 or a 9. Someone's going to disagree. Of course they are. That's the nature of opinions. But if you don't land these two, it drops dramatically. If you do, I think, an unprecedented window that we've never seen before. But naturally, questions around Marc Guehi. And Sammy Motball, the BBC football correspondent, did give an update on this, as did Miguel Delaney, which we'll get to as well. He said yesterday, Liverpool and Crystal Palace have held discussions about a possible 35 million deal for Guehi to go to Anfield before the deadline. There's still no agreement, but those talks should accelerate the next few days. It all hinges, it says, on Steve Parish and his valuation and, as he refers to, Liverpool's valuation. Whether it's enough to let their captain go will come back to us. Just throw in the line that Parish may decide just to keep him for the year and, doesn't get a deal. Although we think about what Steve Parish said the other day when he was interviewed after the Community Shield and said, we're not a type of club that's able to let players go on a free. He mentioned Joachim Anderson, didn't he, as well, when they let him go on a free to Fulham. This is probably the key paragraph from Sammy, though. There's still a lot to get done in that deal, but there are legs in it. And if I were a betting man, then I'd put my money on that deal to get done before the transfer window closes. I like that, Sammy. But there's only 13 days left. And I'm going to just be completely honest with me. I would love Marc Guehi in before Newcastle. I would love to say, we got Leone last Friday, Marc Guehi done. That is our centre-half business completed. And we're in great shape. Aside from his contract, of course. But that's a different discussion. Whether that will happen, we'll have to see. Also important that a name came into the mix that Miguel Delaney tweeted this from The Independent. Crystal Palace considering Rennes' Jeremy Jacquet, who we've mentioned on the transfer show, has been looked at by Liverpool on a few occasions if Marc Guehi departs, but the latter looks very difficult, which isn't really the update or the phrasing we were looking for, Miguel Delaney. So if you delve into this and look at the thing, he says that this is probably the key paragraph. The Selhurst Park Club have been open to selling Guehi in the summer, given his contract expires next year, but there has been a 10 million difference in valuation between themselves and Liverpool. Why the Anfield hierarchy are not budging from 35 million, Palace are insistent on 45 million. It feels like ruthless negotiators are playing one big game of chicken with Marc Guehi in the middle, doesn't it? And we've mentioned this on the transfer show. Liverpool are not prepared to pay a figure that doesn't start with a 3. Yeah, it's so important. Just do a compromise. Anyone else just see it like me, as we've said on the transfer show 100 times. We want to offer 35. They think he's worth 45. What comes in the middle of that? A great deal all round. Great value for a player. If Marc Guehi signs for Liverpool for 40 million, you are honestly looking at that and going, great business. Of course you are. It might well get done, but again, when is it going to get done? That's the big question. I think people want him in straight away, as do I, just to put a bit of pressure on Konate, give you cover options at centre-back as well, especially because it's possible we're a bit unsure who is available for this Newcastle game. It might be We don't know, and we're hoping it's not, and we'll get photos, I'm sure, training photos, etc., in the next few days. But Joe Gomez might be the only available right back right now, as far as we're aware, because Conor Bradley's out, and we're waiting on an update on Jeremy Frimpong, who felt his hamstring, hoping that's just precautionary. And of course, from Friday to the Monday game, there's a long time for him to recuperate. But if you just get Marc Guehi through the door now for 40 million, everyone's happy. It's a great move. It's a big tick in the box and a boost for everyone. It's another leader, the Crystal Palace captain, into the squad as well. You can say it's not that simplistic, and I get that, but yeah, it is a strange one for me. And yet it's still not probably the two sort of big stories of the day. Now, I'm going to take you back to the 28th of July, and let me read this tweet from Fabrizio Romano on the 28th of July, just, a couple of weeks ago, literally 3 weeks ago. He said, even after Luis Diaz's sale, Federico Chiesa plan remains to leave Liverpool as he wants to play more. Serie A is still his favourite destination. 28th of July. And then he tweeted this last night. Federico Chiesa and his agent have, Fali Ramandes, I'm sure you know, have informed Liverpool about a clear desire to stay at the club. Chiesa considered to leave in June, July when Liverpool rejected bids for Diaz and Federico was left out the Asia tour. Now Diaz is left, the more space and that goal to open the new chapter. Literally, this was 12:45 last night. And he did a bit on one of his videos again, which annoyingly we can't play, to say Federico loves the club, loves Liverpool, all this. And, it's all great. It's just a massive 360. But in the context of things right now, Salah, Gakpo, Ekitike, Chiesa, and another senior forward with Florian Wirtz able to play on the left, Rio and Gamoa certain minutes, it does look and sound a bit healthier. The only thing, just to put a little asterisk, as they say, against this one, again, we mentioned it on the transfer show that Liverpool have looked at different wingers and options, but if Chiesa stays, that might well stop that. If they decide to pull the trigger on one of those, that may mean something different from Chiesa. But let's take this with a positive as it is. Chiesa is telling the club, and what a goal he scored the other night, I'm sure you've watched it 80,000 times like me, that he wants to stay. It is just a full 360, but there we go. Now, let's speak about a certain player. Players, the striker. Everyone knows about Alexander Isak and this saga. Oh my God. Just rumbles on and on and on. Now, this is important to say because I had to dig it out about 6 days ago. No disrespect to Craig Hope, who is the a Geordie Patch journalist, but he did actually say in one of his briefings, and you had to dig it out to make sure that actually, with Jacob Ramsey potentially coming in, with Anthony Gordon being able to play number 9, if Visser comes in, Newcastle could potentially sanction an exit for Alexander Isak. And he was really clear to say that, they could look at it again in January or later. Those were his words. I had to dig it out to check. However, Craig Hope published this article yesterday. Yohan Visser's situation escalates as he deletes all trace of Brentford on Insta, which is true. Sometimes that's false, isn't it, when people say that? But he removed all those things. He thought he'd agreement to go, but Brentford now asking 50 million Newcastle deal in doubt. 50 million plus there, Newcastle deal in doubt. Huge, this is what we care about. Huge impact for Isak and Liverpool. Newcastle need 2 strikers for it to happen. They've signed 0. And quite a few comments below this article came in and, saying, hold on, the rhetoric shifted. You did say, this. And he said, and Craig Hope replied to one, I'm just quoting it here, to say, no, they need to sign a striker regardless of Isak's situation, which was what Howe said, which is true. Still looking for a second striker, as they were with Sesko, but they can't get 1 right now, never mind 2. which had a huge exclamation mark next to it at the same time. I mean, I'm just being honest. If it is 2, if the goalposts have moved from what was said, and Ramsey and Visser aren't enough to do the release for Isak, they need 2 strikers. For me, Liverpool need to be working on contingencies and fast. Because ask this question honestly, how much faith do you have in Newcastle signing not 1, 2 strikers? And maybe the way I'd put it there with my fingers is the right way of displaying it. I don't know. But minimal for me. If it's Visser and they'll hold off and, and all that, possible. But this is, I mean, I've got to be honest, the saga of the summer, and Keith Downey even mentioned it yesterday, there were no active talks between Brentford and Newcastle for Johan Visser yesterday. It's a little bit of what there is going on. It really is right now. I don't know how else to put it. Yeah. We're all waiting, similar to you people. We all want advancement. We all want to hear a bid for Guehi with a compromise reached. Yeah, we want it. There's a bit of us now probably wants to think, slap the bid in for Isak. But obviously that's not going to happen because we're told Liverpool are waiting for the quote-unquote green light from Newcastle. It is a big week, it feels, as we said. Of course it is. 13 days of the window to go. But Liverpool might just have to move for contingencies now or start that process. We'll have to see what unfolds. Who knows? Maybe today a new Visser offer goes in. Maybe there is development on Guehi. It would be nice. It is not, to repeat, it is not panic stations at all. But Liverpool's alternatives may just have to be looked at very shortly. Again, if you ask me to bet, I still think Isak does end up at Anfield. But it would be nice if everyone just got to move on. We'll see what develops today, eh? Tuesday, the 19th of August. That was another news round for Anfield Index.